Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome back to WARNO and Oudinot. So it dropped on Friday, to the surprise of everyone I think, including probably Eugen. But it's nice to finally have it and people be able to play around with it. So what has it brought? Well, quite a few things to be fair. I mean, we've obviously got the tutorials now, which if you got the single player and come here, you got the tutorials. I was really impressed when I got to play these, and I just want to say that Eugen deserves a pat on the back for it. One thing with Eugen games is that there weren't really any proper tutorials, and it's always been a struggle to get new players into these games, and then people went scrambling to YouTube, and yes, it brought people to my channel and other channels, but it's nice to see that there is an easy way for people to start playing the game and get the basics. And I mean, these are the basics of the basics, but at least it's something. And the plan is to add more, I believe. This isn't all of them. And I've had a chance to give feedback and stuff, so hopefully all of that will be implemented and, you know, they will progress from there. So, you know, pat on the back to the team that did that. The other thing is, if we go to Skirmish, there are loads of new maps. Obviously, Destruction in particular has loads of new maps listed. So that's really good. You can also click on the scenario list here and you can see all of the scenarios. So all of the maps. You can see the Conquest versions, and then down at the bottom you can see the Destruction versions. It gives you a top-down view, so you can see where all of the points are. You can see how they differ between the two. So 2 ways there. You know, there are variations here. So Conquest has a 4-player and a 6-player one, where the points are different and the positioning is different. Ripple, obviously, you know, Mount River, Iron Water's the huge one, you know, and then Iron Water's down here. Obviously, completely different points makeup for Destruction. I think that's really nice. I actually really love some of the point distributions, or the, you know, the cap point distributions, as it were, on the Destruction maps. I think some of them are actually better than the Conquest maps, but it's a personal thing. But loads of cool stuff, loads of new additions. I love this list. Really pleased that list is there. So yeah, plenty of new maps to play around with. Destruction, I still think you get maybe too many points. I still think that I would like another level of the income rate factor to adjust it to 0.25. Whether that's doable, I don't know. Obviously, I'm coming from playing Wargame. But enough on here. Let's head to the Armory. So I will say before I start talking about the Armory stuff, I've recorded this video once already. But in the latest patch, the Oudinot patch, it seems that my refresh rate, if I set it to my monitor refresh rate or anything higher than 41, it seems to create increasingly loud coil whine on my card, which didn't happen before, and that was coming through on the microphone, which is really unusual as well. But because I have some software that's supposed to remove it, but it didn't seem to be able to deal with that coil whine. So I've reduced my FPS, as it were, or my hertz down to 41 while on the menu. I can turn it up again when I'm playing. But I don't know if anyone else has experienced that in the latest patch. I don't know if that's just me. I would love to know if anyone else is having that issue, so I can feed it back to Eugen. So, obviously there's been a few changes. We have 2 new divisions. We have the Berlin Command, and we have the Unternehmen Zentrum. Berlin Command being a mixture of British, French and American forces with a few West German forces thrown in. And then the Unternehmen Zentrum, which is mostly East German with a few Soviet forces thrown in. In terms of the 2 sides, I feel like overall the Unternehmen Zentrum come out on top, which I suppose you would expect them to in terms of they're going for realism, that, well, realism to an extent, which is that the Soviets surrounded Berlin and the East Germans surrounded Berlin, so therefore had access to all of their gear within reason, whereas the Berlin Command had not a lot. And because they've stuck reasonably, you know, to that point, I got to say the Berlin Command, not great. We're going to take a look at it. I did build a deck earlier and we'll go back through it now. But yeah, obviously there's been other things. So the traits have been added. So, you know, the rifles leader's selected there. So you got the leader Let's pick another unit. The engineers, they have the shock. The Sapri have shock and the forward deployment, airborne. They already have that little icon there. They've just added an extra one. What else we got? We've got some amphibious vehicles. If we can find one. The Sheridan is amphibious. It's got little wavy lines. And Mostralki are some Mostralki Metis. They've got this little chain, which means that they are IFV infantry. So if they are near an IFV with that same icon, then they get bonuses to suppression and things like that. There is also the military police, who are somewhere in the list. Who knows where. There are some in this group, so there we go, Prevote. So, military police there, and they are supposed to grant suppression regeneration bonus and remove any unsteady traits. So, some units have unsteady. For example, the RAF rifles, they are considered reservists, so are completely unsteady, and, you know, take a lot more suppression in combat. I'm not sure the military police thing is working to remove that at the moment. Question mark, I don't know. But they also have the security, so their optics increase by 1 level, so from normal to good, when they are stationary. So they're slightly better at recon than a normal infantry squad. That's pretty much it. Other than that, you know, there's a handful of other things. There are special forces, which are only in recon in this deck, so Detachment A are special forces. So again, they get additional bonuses upon, you know, over and above being elite and stuff like that. So these guys are special forces and they are shock, so they get bonuses to close range combat for being shock. And obviously they're recon as well. Anything special here? So some of these units are transports, and some of them may or may not be able to transport stuff. I don't know if there's still an issue with the transport thing and it's showing up on some units that aren't. But generally speaking, that's covered most of them. But let's actually build a deck, shall we? So I already built a deck for the Building Command, but I'm going to go and build another one. Just because I obviously have deleted that footage. So I'm not really like all over the Building Command. I feel they are a bit weak in so many areas that I wouldn't really recommend them necessarily for like 1v1s, for example. The pro players might feel differently. You'd have to ask people like Lathans and Karma. But I just feel like they have so many weak areas, it wouldn't be my go-to unless I was just playing a silly game. So in terms of supply, you get a choice of the trucks. The Bedford is an obvious choice because you get 1,000 and it's 35 points. So it's less than double the other ones, which are only 500. So I'd stick those in there. Then you've got these two, and I don't know why they're the same price. If I pin that and show you the difference here. So the French one is faster, it carries the same amount of supply, and it takes more damage. It has 8 health points. The American one is the same price, is slower, and only has 5 hit points. Unless you were taking all 3, there is no reason to take the American one, in my opinion. It's like the worst deal. So if you wanted to take all 3, fine. But I wouldn't be rushing to do that. Then you've got the command vehicles. I mean, I was having a plod through these command vehicles before, and I spent a while looking through them in the other video that I recorded. And all I'm going to do is this. I'm going to click through these ones and work my way up. All of these 4 here have bad stealth. The only big advantage here is these, you get 3 of them. Okay? The others are all 2. But the Humvee, which I would consider technically bigger than a Jeep. Maybe I'm crazy. This has mediocre stealth. So this has better stealth than the Jeeps. I don't know if that's a mistake or what. It also has more health because it's 6 instead of 4. Not that that makes any difference. If it gets bombed or artilleried or shot, then it's probably going to die. But just for the fact that it's easier to hide. It's going to be harder to see. Obviously, there's a change with the commander vehicles that they don't have to stay in the point now, but that's not entirely true, is it? Because if you're contesting a point in the middle of the map, your command still has to be in it. You can't leave. So, yeah, I don't know. I would go with a Humvee, personally, because it's easier to hide. That is my reasoning for that. But, you know, if you want to go with one of the Jeeps, that's fine, because you get more of them. I'm not sure. This is very slow, and it has no... There's nothing special about that to me. Other than it's got 10 health points. This has 8. It's got the same armor and it's a lot faster. So out of those two, I'd probably go with that. Although it is, you know, it is 10 points more, I guess. But is that really, you know, a big deal? That's all I'd take in this area of the deck. Honestly. Infantry is a bit disappointing. Considering this is supposed to be very close quarters combat orientated, you've not got a huge amount of stuff like Engineer's Flash. You know, you've got... The reality is a lot of the troops get the shock bonus. So they will do more suppression when fighting at close combat ranges. Which is fine. You know, the RAF rifles don't get it. The standard rifles don't get it. These guys don't get it. These guys don't get it. Do you see where I'm going with this, though? So, the Engineer's Flash, obviously close quarters, great. I'm just going to take 9 of those straight off the bat. Not even looking at anything else. They are going straight in there. You got Terrier's Pioneers, which have the satchels, and I kind of want those. And then... there's some debate still with the pricing and numbers on these, I think. Sappers, flamethrowers. Do you take those as well? It's really... I'm struggling with how many more of those to take. But again, they are assault. You got some Milan 2s down there. I think you're going to need them, so I would take 6 of those. The Berlin light rifles are very similar to the Grenadier Voltigeurs, and they're equally also very similar to the rifles. So you got 3 squads that are similar. You know, they're all 10... Well, the rifles aren't 10-man squads, but the rifles have the best anti-tank. 20 penetration. So, now, suppression and everything else comes into this a bit now, and I'm kind of like, well, do you rank them up? And the answer is I probably would go for veteran. And I'd probably take 2 of those. Because I want the anti-tank in some ways than anything else. You then have the option of things like the light rifles. And the Grenadier Voltigeurs, they're cheaper. You get 9 of them. And, you know, between the two, if we pin them, because that's always fun, right? Damage output wise, technically, the FAMAS is better. 9 FAMAS do more than the 8 there. Obviously, machine gun wise, technically the Americans have the edge. But in terms of the anti-tank, the RF-1 does more damage. The M67 has better range. Now, back at the start of all of this and the game release, the M67 was amazing. But I'm not sure whether I would consider it amazing anymore. The military police that had it were very, very good. And I don't know anymore, is the honest answer to that. So, that's, you know, 15 points more. And you only get 6 of them available. At least if you upgrade that, then you get slightly more. You do have the option of VAB as well, but other than the fact it's amphibious, there's nothing special about it. So I'm going to take a group of those. Now, you obviously have the choice of something like the RAF rifles, and as I say, they do have the reservist trait, and they're unsteady. So the trait is unsteady as well, I guess. And you can remove that with the guys up here. So military police. So there's 3 sets of military police. I have mixed feelings. They're all 4-man squads. Oh, sorry. The American military police are a 5-man squad. They get an M60, which is quite nice. And they get a couple of assault rifles. You get the Privateer, which get 4 SMGs, which, you know, technically feels like it's outputting a lot of damage, especially at close range. So I'm quite tempted by those guys. So I think I'd stick those in. They're also the cheapest of the 3. Obviously, these guys get more variety in their weapons. So that's why you're paying a little bit more. You get 12 of any of them, though. Gun group, I've never really been that enthused about them. I'm kind of, if I'm going to go with something here, I kind of want to go with that. So, those guys, just for some cover fire. Engineers Dragon. The Dragon is an okay anti-tank. It's not spectacular. It's going to miss a lot. That's something you could definitely stick in there. I'd like to actually grab a commander. Now, you'll notice I haven't gone out of my way to grab anything with the unsteady trait. Firstly, because I'm not sure if the military police are removing that at the moment. Secondly, because there's nothing here I want, but there is something in Recon I want to take. And we'll show you that when we get there. So, other than that, I mean, one nice thing about, sorry, again, these, obviously, is just to say that that is quite nice. The security thing is quite a nice idea. Slightly better optics. Anyhow. Other than that, I kind of want to take a commander. So you got an engineer's leader, which doesn't have any anti-tank with it. A rifles leader, which does have some anti-tank. Light rifles has anti-tank. I'm kind of leaning towards the British rifles leader. We'll go with that. And then I'm going to leave the last 3 points. It's a challenge. I don't... There's decks where I go, yeah, I want land infantry, land infantry, land infantry, land infantry, and I do not feel like that here. Like, the Wombat is nothing exciting, let's be honest. And you got the Milan 2s. Are you going to take the Milan 1s? Probably not. Yeah, there's not really anything else there I want to, you know, is screaming to me, take me. Artillery-wise, I mean, it's your standard affair, isn't it? The M109 Air 2. Taking those because they're great. They're mobile, they've got good range. Obviously, this is an option that half the price. They're going to be very risky to have. Counter battery is going to cause them issues because they move so slowly. Other than that, mortars. You got a single activation point there, so you could bring some mortars, I'm sure. If you're going to take some, I kind of would take the 120mm. Because they're so much better than the alternative. Maybe that's just me. I mean, you know, 107 is the next one down. But even then, you know, they're not spectacular. But we'll stick them in there. Tanks, you are not spoilt for choice. You've got an Abrams. And you can either have 6, 4, or 2. We're going to go for 6, obviously. You've got the Chieftains, which outrange those, the Chieftain Mark 10. And they got 50 in front armor, so we're going to take 6 of those. And that's our heavy tanks done. There's 2 commands here. The 2 command tanks, I'm leaning more towards command tanks being utilized in the contested zone still. So if you're going to stick one in, I would go with the Abrams because it's got more front armor. And technically more side armor as well, but I'm more interested in the front armor. These things shouldn't be fighting. So while the gun might be better on the Chieftain, higher damage, longer range, the reality is that I want it for the armor. I want it to be able to take some punishment. The CEV is potentially a good choice, but they're not as explosive, shall we say, as they are in Wargame Red Dragon. So they have their uses, but they never really do it for me as much. So I probably wouldn't stick it in there and waste my point on it. I've been debating the Raden. It's got no armor. This is my big issue with this. It's got 1 armor all the way around, and I'm not convinced how effective this will be in spammability, but I'd take it to try it. I don't think you could meme with it. I just don't think it's going to be fast enough, and I don't think that it's got enough armor. I think it, because of its slow speed and its lack of armor, they're just going to get wrecked. But, you know, we'll give anything a go once. In terms of your tanks, you've got this, which is, let me pin it, it's 65 points. And you've got this, which is 85. I see no reason why you wouldn't take the AMX-30B. It's got loads more armor, and it's got a longer range, and a better main gun overall, and then it's got an autocannon as well. So, yeah, that is more than worth 20 points more. And again, I'm just going to take it at its lowest rank, so I get 12 of them. Because there's so few tanks in this deck. And then I'm going to take the Humvee TOW. Because again, I feel like I need range, anti-tank, and this has good stealth. So it's going to be easier to hide it in tree lines. And that's honestly all I would take there. If you're not... I mean, the Raden is sort of there for query memes, but I don't know how that's going to pan out. I might well remove that and take something else with a missile. Or take something somewhere else in the deck, I don't know. Reconnaissance. You have what appears to be a wide selection, but it's not a great selection, honestly. Probably one of the most interesting things is the BGS. And this is where I was saying maybe the military police would come in handy if they did the whole unsteady thing. It's a shame that these guys don't count as security, because they could then have exceptional optics, which is obviously ground radar level. There isn't any ground radar in this deck, by the way. But I'm quite entertained by the fact that these guys have so many MP5s. I feel like that's quite a lot of damage output. So close quarters, they could be quite useful. But they would need to have the unsteady trait removed by the police. So these guys mixed with the police, I feel like they could be quite damaging. They have this fun little vehicle. It's a police vehicle, obviously, technically, but with a gun on top. But there's no bonus to taking that, really. It's got good optics. It's technically a recon thing, but I think I'd just take them in that. So I think these have a benefit that they have very good optics. And I think they'll be useful in some close quarters situations if the whole trait system's working correctly. Then, unusually for me, I would actually take the Alouette now. Because I think recon choppers have more of a place when you're not necessarily going to have a command in your back points, and therefore there is a risk that someone is going to snatch them off you. And you want to make sure your sides are covered with recon. So I'd actually now take those. I know everyone will feel differently about that, and I know I'm good at losing choppers, so I don't tend to take them, but I'm actually now going to take them. Detachment A, because they are only special forces available. They have MP5s, they have AT4s, and they have satchel charges. So they're good against infantry and they're good against vehicles, so they're going in. I wouldn't bother taking them in a Huey personally, just have some nice machine gun on it, but Humvee will do. Keep the cost down. And then I kind of want to take the Fox, because I've found the Fox to be very useful. You only get 6 of them, but I think they're a very good unit, so I'll take them as well. Then in terms of anti-air, yeah, it's not good, is it? It's a bit dismal. So your best anti-air available here by far are the Pivads. I wouldn't bother ranking them up because they're going to die because they're radar, and you're going to have to babysit them if you don't want them to get killed by seed. Yeah. Other than that, the next best one is the Mistral, because it's got the accuracy and it's got the range and it's got the higher HE damage. So I would stick that in as well. Then you've got the Javelin, which has better accuracy, better range, but less damage than the Stinger. So the other thing here is amount that you get, which makes a difference. You get double the amount of Javelins. Now the Stingers are not as accurate, but they do more damage. And obviously more suppression. But they also have less of a range against aircraft. I mean, for me, it's that because you get 12 of them. But I'm struggling here. Anti-air is terrible. And considering when we get to the air tab, you'll see we don't really have any anti-air jets. I feel like in a 1v1 scenario, this Berlin Command would struggle. But I don't know. I'd be curious what Lathans and people like that think. And Karma. So then, Helos, I mean, you've got not a lot of choice here. Personally, I go with the Helarm because I want more anti-tank. I think Gazelle rockets have a place because they're cheap, but you're not going to be able to cover them with any aircraft, really. So if you go in with them, they're going to get shot down pretty quickly, especially if the enemy have aircraft. So I'm not going to get those as well. We'll just go with the Helarms. Air Tab, well, I mean, that's your choice, isn't it? Harriers, which are going to turn terribly and have no long-range missiles. The F-117A Nighthawk, which we're going to take just to try it out, because stealth plane, going to be good, yeah? I mean, it's amazing in Wargame Red Dragon. I have no idea how it'll perform in this. A Seed. Now, I'm all for a Mirage Seed. My question is that it's got unguided bombs on it as well. The reason there's a question mark for me there is, how does it behave? We have situations already in the game where bombers don't always drop their bombs correctly. What happens when you give them 2 ground attack options? Is it going to confuse the AI system more that is trying to target stuff? Let's test it. And then we get a lovely Mirage Carpet Bomber, for lack of a better word here. I mean, it's got 16 bombs. I mean, it's going to make a mess. I am all over that. I want to try it. I feel like that is going to be an expensive suicide run. 380 points. I'd be surprised if it gets out alive, because you can't really bring anything to cover it. You got HE Harrier, you got a Cluster Harrier, you got a Rocket Harrier, and you've got a Anti-Air Harrier. I mean, short-range missiles. Cannon. I'm taking it because I want something to kill helicopters. And most of the time I imagine it's going to be a suicide run, but I need something to kill helicopters. The clusters. I'm thinking about other divisions that would have lots of heavy tanks and how much I can withstand. And 150 points suicide runner. Because it's going to go in, it's going to die. I have no illusion that it's going to survive a run. I feel like it's going to go in and die, but it will be enough to kill a tank. So I'd stick that in. And then we've got 3 points to play with. Logistics, I wouldn't really want to put anything more in there. I'd possibly take some more infantry, I think. Artillery, no. Tanks, there's nothing there that's jumping out at me and screaming, take me. Recon, no. Anti-air, no. Helicopters, not really. So we either take another aircraft, which the air support is so bad here. I feel like all my aircraft are going to die. So I don't see any point in taking that. So I'm going to take some more infantry. And choices here? I mean, I've got 2 rifles already. I only get 6 of those. They don't have any anti-tank. It's not like I'm spoilt for choice here. I'm almost tempted to take the Engineer's Dragon. At least they're shock. I think we go with that. I think we'll go with the Engineer's Dragon. Burning Command. I don't know. It's a weird deck. I know they're trying to stick to what it might have been at the time, or what they would have had access to, potentially, with a couple of already adjustments that they maybe wouldn't have had. But yeah, not at all enthused by the Burning Command. I feel like it's weak in so many areas. I'm just not sure how it's going to perform. Tanks, mediocre. Artillery, standard. Anti-air, poor. Air, poor. Helos, poor. Recon, mediocre. Infantry, mediocre. I don't feel like there's any really strong tabs here. I don't know how you guys feel. How do you guys feel about Burning Command? Let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of the new trait system as well, and how things are performing so far. I will call this video here, because I don't want to keep making it longer and longer. But I'll put another video up looking at the Unternehmen and Zentrum, and then we'll have a look at whatever else we can find to make a video on. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. Please do like, share, subscribe, and I will see you all soon